Hi guys, the first thing I need you to do is complete this warm-up and then we will move on with the lesson. So pause the video, complete the warm-up, and when you come back, I will give you the answers. Okay, welcome back. For number 3, you should have gotten 2/3. Number 4, you should have gotten 10/3. Number 5, you should have gotten 5/1. Number 6, you should have gotten cheddar, because the cheddar is 14 cents. And then the Swiss ended up being 17 cents. Okay, for number 7, you should have gotten 1.5. Number 8, you should have gotten 1 1/3. And number 9, you should have gotten 24. Okay, in your notes, you guys are doing section 5-6 today. You need to make sure the objective is in your notes as to identify proportional relationships and analyze proportional relationships. I know you did this last time, but now we are doing it with a graph. So this is the second half of it, so you need to make sure that this is in your notes. Okay? So pause the video at any time that it's going too quick to make sure that you get these notes written down. Okay, so another way to determine if they are proportional is to make a graph. Okay, so if the graph of two quantities is in a straight line through the origin, then the quantities are proportional. So that underlined piece you need to make sure are in your notes. Okay, so they gave you an example for center A. The rate is not constant, so the relationship between the cost and the number of guests is not proportional. The reasoning for that is because they didn't start at 0, 0. They started up here at 0, 400. So that's the reason that works. So if there was 0 guests, it still costs $400, that type of thing. Whereas center B, the rate is constant, so the relationship between the cost and number of guests is proportional. So if you had no guests show up, it would still cost you $0. So again, make sure the underlined piece is in your notes, so you're understanding that there are different ways to do this, and then we will move forward. Okay, for this one, I know the last time we compared the table, which we can do again. So we noticed that 5/1, if we're comparing our y over x, 5/1, 10/2, 15/3, all of these are equal. So they are going to be proportional, but we have to show that through the graph. So in order to do that, we are going to graph these. So when you graph these, you don't need as big of a graph as I have, but you're going to start, and don't forget, these are your x values, these are your y values, and your x is the one down here, and your y is the one down here. So you're going to go over before you go up. Make sure that you are really understanding the graphing, because I know that is one of the biggest things we talked about in the curriculum piece when I was gone last week, was that students aren't understanding the graphing, and it's one of the biggest parts that you're tested on. Okay, so if you graph this, you have 0, 0, 1, 5, 2, 10, 3, 15, and 4, 20. Okay, so if I would have lined them up better, it would have created a straight line, or it should have created a straight line, because they're proportional. So yes, it is a straight line, and yes, it does pass through the origin. So yes, this graph is proportional. Okay, so you need to make sure that, again, you will know how to graph, as well as explaining your reasoning. So it is proportional because it is a straight line and it goes through the origin. Okay, this one, you can see right away, looking at this 0, 20, it's not going to be proportional. If it doesn't end up going through 0, 0, it's not going to be proportional. So that's one way to see it, but you still need to graph. So if I started at 0 and went up 20, so I'm going to count by 5s, over 1, 18, over 2, 16, 3, 14. So that probably wasn't a good number to count by, but you can still see that yes, it has a downward slope. No, it doesn't cross through my origin. So this is not proportional. Even though the line is straight, it still does not pass through the proportion, or it does not pass through the origin. Okay? So this one, I'm going to have you try on your own. So you need to pause the video, try this one on your own, and then when you come back, I will give you the answer. Okay, welcome back. So this one you should have got that it was not proportional either. So if you look right away, you can see that none of them are really proportional if I'm dividing them out. So that doesn't work. But it's also not going to pass through 0, 0. Even if I subtracted, so I can see that here I'm subtracting 5 each time, and I'm subtracting 1 here. Okay, so even if I subtracted 1 to get to 0 and I subtracted 5, I'm still going to end up at 0, 5, which does not give me 0, 0. So it's not proportional. So that's another way you can look at your graph, is what is happening between my x's, what is happening between my y's, and decide if it's going to end up being 0, 0. If it does not, then you know that it is not going to pass through the origin and it's not going to be proportional. Okay, I'm also going to have you guys do this one on your own. So pause the video, try this one on your own, and then when you come back, I will give you the answer. Okay, for this one, you should have seen that yes, it was proportional. It is a straight line. It does pass through the origin, and you can do the same thing again over here. So if I subtract, I know that these are going up by 1. So if I subtract by 1 and make this 0, these ones are subtracting by 25. So if I subtract 25 from 25, I'm going to get 0. So I know it's going to go through the origin. So you need to know how to graph, but I'm also okay if you're able to see it through the table and it's not being proportional, and then you just graph the coordinate points. You'll just be able to have to look at a graph and say if it is proportional or not. So right now, looking at the table and saying if it's proportional is okay, but you just need to graph the coordinate points on a plane. If you need to graph the coordinate points on the plane before you can tell, that is okay as well. Okay, so now we have to analyze them. So when two quantities are proportional, you can use a graph of the quantities to find the constant of proportionality to analyze points on the graph. The graph of every proportional relationship passes through the point 0, 0. And then the point 1r tells you the constant rate of proportionality or the unit rate. Okay, so I can choose any point on my graph and I can find whether these are proportional or not. All right? So looking at this one, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to find and determine the length of proportionality. So I know I have to do y over x. So if I'm doing y over x, I have to take one of my lengths of the stretch over my weight. They only give me 2, okay? I can do both if I need. So I'm going to do 25 over 5, and that reduces to 5 over 1, which is my other point. So 5 over 1 is the constant rate of proportionality, and that is my unit rate because it's over 1. Okay? So interpret means say what it means. So the unit rate means that the length of stretch for every gram that I add, it's going to stretch 5 millimeters. So it's 5 millimeters of stretch per gram. Okay? Then it's going to ask you to explain what these points mean. So 0, 0 would mean that I have no weight and I have no stretch. Okay? 1, 5 would mean I have 1 gram of weight and I have 5 millimeters of stretch. Okay? And then 525 would mean I added 5 grams of weight and I have 25 millimeters of stretch. So all you're doing is stating what all of these points mean, finding your constant rate of proportionality, and then interpreting the graph. Okay? So what I would like you to do is I would like you to try this one on your own. So pick a point on the graph, find the constant rate of proportionality, and then in B, state what these mean. So pause the video, complete these on your own, and then when you come back, I will give you the answers. Okay, welcome back. For this one, it doesn't matter which point you choose. If you chose 72 over 12, perfect. If you chose 48 over 8, that one would have worked as well. And same with 24 over 4. Since they're all on the same line, they should all end up being the same thing. So my constant rate of proportionality would say that 6 feet is equal to 1 fathom. Okay? So with that being said, in order to explain the points, you should have had that 0 feet is equal to 0 fathoms. Okay? 4 feet is equal to 24 fathoms. and then 8 feet is equal to 48 fathoms. Okay? So make sure that you're, if I were you, I would make sure that this graph is in there as well as this example, so you know everything that is expected when you get to the quiz, when you get to the test, or when you get to the homework. Okay, this one I'm going to have you pause the video and complete as well, and then when you get back, I will give you the answer. So pause the video, complete this, and then I will give you the answer so you can check. Okay, for A, you should have gotten that it was 2 millimeters per day that this plant grew. Ooh. So 2 millimeters per 1 day is my unit rate. Okay, or my constant rate of proportionality. 0, 0 would then mean that 0 days, it didn't grow any millimeters. In 1 day, it grew 2 millimeters. And then in 6 days, it grew 12 millimeters. Okay, so that's exactly what these are saying. In 6 days, it grew 12 millimeters. In 9 days, it grew 18 millimeters. So I'm multiplying my x by 2 in order to get what it is meaning. Okay, the next thing I need you to do is I need you to do these 4 problems on a green exit ticket, turn them in with your homework, and then the sub will give you page 216, and your homework is only 9 through 16. So there's not a lot of homework tonight, but I want to make sure that you're understanding. It will be due on Monday when I see you. So have a fabulous day, and I will see you on Monday.